You're listening to MinerTalk on demand exclusively on 600 ESPN El Paso. Stay up to date with MinerTalk by downloading the free 600 ESPN El Paso mobile app. And we're back. It's another season of MinerTalk. I'm your host, Adrian Broaddus. I'm joined by Sal Montes and Jason Craig after every UTEP football game for MinerTalk. We wanted to give you a good season preview for the UTEP football team. We got some great guests today, and I'm so excited to do this. But before we get to our guests, I want to send off a message to all our listeners and all the people on social media. Thank you so much for supporting MinerTalk throughout the years. This is year 4 of MinerTalk, and if it weren't for the listeners, we wouldn't be doing this. We appreciate all the great listeners out there for all their calls, all their tweets, and just chiming in and being a part of this MinerTalk community. This show has grown tremendously since we started back in 2019, and we never take any moment for granted. So thank you so much to all the people who listen, who give us great feedback. And hey, if you like MinerTalk, please share it with a friend. It really helps us, and it goes a long way. So now let's get to some of our guests here coming up on this show. We're going to have Voice of the Miners, Jon Teicher, chat with us about the UTEP season preview. Freytag will talk with us about joining the UTEP radio broadcast alongside the Voice of the Miners in Jon Teicher. Then we'll have Oscar Arrieta from the Oscar Arrieta Agency, the title sponsor here on MinerTalk. He'll chat with us about celebrating his 25th year of serving the Sun City. Along with Oscar, we'll have Sal Montes joining us here on the MinerTalk podcast. And right between, we'll have quarterback Gavin Hardison give his insight on this UTEP football team. As we chatted with him after practice, and closing out the show, we'll join Steve Kaplowitz. We'll break down the season and we'll give our season prediction. All that and plenty more to come on 600 ESPN El Paso. But without further ado, let's get to some of these interviews. All right, and welcome into the next segment here on the MinerTalk podcast, looking over the season for UTEP football as they prepare to kick off the 2022 campaign. And joining us now is Voice of the Miners, Jon Teicher, back at it again for another big season. You'll hear him on 600 ESPN El Paso for all the UTEP football coverage, with the exception of a couple games that will be played on our sister station, 95.5 KLAQ. Jon, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back from hibernation, and excited to talk about some UTEP football with you. How's everything going?
Well, I can't complain, Adrian, and I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to this 2022 UTEP football season. The Miners have taken some pretty good strides, particularly in 2021, playing in their first bowl game in 7 seasons and finishing with a winning campaign. And I think they're poised to take another step ahead and another step forward this season.
I would totally agree with you on that. And as you look at this team as a whole, Jon, you've got a chance to watch some practices this offseason as they get ready in fall camp. What are your first impressions of this football team heading into the 2022 season?
Well, I think just their maturity and experience showing through. Adrian, I think this is a group that has got some guys that have played quite a bit of football at this level. I think they know how to work. I think they know what it takes to compete and have some success at this level. And given the depth that Dana Dimmel and his staff have been able to assemble with this UTEP football program, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about for UTEP football fans.
I agree, and I think last year the fans really wanted this team to take that next step. They wanted almost to prove they wanted the UTEP football team to prove to the fans that they can be a winner. And you know what? UTEP did hold their end of the bargain on that one. But this year things kind of changed. It's now expectations are placed on this team to have that success. But knowing the maturity that's coming back, knowing how many starters will be returning to this team, it kind of makes you feel, at least a little bit more optimistic going into this year that they'll hold their end of the bargain when it comes to these expectations on this team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, Adrian, it starts on the line of scrimmage and just the depth and the talent and the maturity and experience that UTEP has on the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. And I think with a good football team and a good football program, it's got to start at the line of scrimmage. And UTEP, over the last couple of years, has drastically cut its amount of yards allowed, particularly rushing on defense, and I think that again is going to serve this group well as this 2022 football season approaches.
Which players are you most excited about this upcoming year?
Well, obviously, I think you always start at quarterback, and Gavin Hardison now is going to be in his third full season as a starter, and I think you've got to be excited about Gavin's maturity and what's behind him, and the fact that he's still got a couple of full years to shepherd this UTEP football program. The two-headed monster of Deion Hankins and Ronald Awatt in the backfield, and certainly on defense, you got to look at those guys on the outside up front, and Adrian Taylor and Frey's Amehule. You've got to look at them as well. Tyrese Knight returning as one of the linebackers, and let's not forget the guys inside on the defensive front as well, and Keenan Stewart and Kelton Moss, both of whom now are in their third year in the program, have had such a big hand in allowing the success that UTEP defense has had, because when the guys in the middle of that defensive front are occupying blockers and allowing their teammates to make plays in the running game, that's going to lead to some success. And again, as we've talked about, the Miners certainly have made great strides in that regard the last couple of years.
No doubt about it. And when you look at some of those newcomers coming into this program, it's interesting kind of the philosophy that Dana Dimel takes with all these, because he looks at the vacant spots on his position groups and he recruits to those position groups right there. And you saw that over the offseason. They get a newcomer like Josiah Allen at the cornerback position and several others on the defensive side and offensive side. Who are you most excited to look at as far as newcomers for this football team?
Well, if you were going to look at two areas where the Miners might be vulnerable after last season, going into the offseason and ultimately into the fall of 2022, it would be the receiver position, where UTEP suffered a couple of substantial losses. But Kelly Akari, I think, was here in the spring and has certainly made his mark already, I think, on this UTEP football program. I think we're expecting big things from him. Amari White, who is not here in the spring, but has done some great things already in camp leading up to the start of the season. Those two on the offensive side of things. You mentioned Josiah Allen on the corner defensively, and Latrez Shelton. The Miners lost two seniors last year as their starting corners, and obviously needed some young blood to come through, and I think Josiah Allen and Latrez Shelton have taken the bull by the horns and established themselves as early season starters on the corners. So those are four names, two at the receiver position and two at the corner position, where the Miners, I think, needed the most help.
Now, it's so interesting now the Miners playing in a week zero game like they are against North Texas Saturday, August 27th. So interesting to look at this game as a whole and the real big push by the athletic department to try to sell this game out. We had texted back and forth about this as far as kind of reflecting back on their last sellout, which came back in 2008 against Texas. But looking at this one right here, August 27th, what would it mean to the community, maybe even to these players, to just know that they could maybe sell this game out and get fans really excited about North Texas coming in for the season opener?
I think more than anything else, Adrian, just with everything that a lot of these kids have been through, what with COVID and the very difficult couple of seasons that accompanied that over the last couple of years, just the kind of the thought that, hey, we're back to normal again, and that this community really cares about us and cares about UTEP football, and opening with a conference opponent as they are in North Texas. I think it sends a great message to these kids who have persisted through the difficult times here in El Paso and with UTEP football. I think it would send them a very, very powerful powerful message.
And it's also a good reminder to fans, they don't see this very often at the Sun Bowl where you have this many people join, at the stadium for a huge event like this. I mean, we had athletic director Jim Center join us and really stress to fans, get there early and be there even earlier than you might normally, go when you go to these game days. But one of the big questions that I have for you, John, is I reflect back on that 2008 game, the sellout against Texas, Mac Brown coming to town with the Longhorns along with Colt McCoy. That team was just stacked with talent, and the Miner fans really showed up. I know Longhorn fans did as well, but what do you remember about that game right there, just reflecting back to the last sellout that UTEP had?
Well, again, just the buzz in the stadium, the excitement throughout the city. Again, the Texas Longhorns in El Paso. It's not something that happens very often. It's not something that happens every day, and just remembering the excitement that permeated this community when the Longhorns were in town for that particular game. And again, Adrian, as you'll recall, the Miners hung with the Longhorns for quite a long time in that contest. And as we got into the very much into the second half and even into the fourth quarter, I was thinking that wow, what if the unthinkable is about to happen?
Sure. I remember that as well. Fans were going crazy in that game, and I think Bevo was going crazy in the end zone as well. But, shifting gears back to something I touched on earlier, John, I want to get your thoughts on this. Recruiting at UTEP is so different, and we look at it from a national perspective, and UTEP is usually near the bottom of different recruiting lists, but for no good reason, right? Because they usually get and capitalize on the junior college market where they're able to get players to play immediately. And they get those mid-year transfers who could come and join in the spring, learn the entire offense or defense, and then perform in the fall. What are your thoughts on this philosophy? Going more the JUCO-heavy route, sprinkling in high school recruits when you can, and sure, they get transfers left and right here and there when it comes to D1 guys. But what's your thoughts on this philosophy as far as Dana Dimel's recruiting?
Well, I think Dana has identified a system that he saw worked well for a very, very similar program in Kansas State during his many years there with Bill Snyder. The Wildcats heavily recruited the junior college ranks. I think Dana and his staff deserve a great deal of credit for their evaluation process. They've identified some kids maybe that fall somewhat under the radar, not that they aren't talented players in their own right, but maybe that some other programs had some questions about. And they've obviously done a good job of evaluation, of development, and they've done a great job of retention of these kids as well. And there's so much focus, Adrian, so much focus these days on the transfer portal that I think that UTEP has found itself a pretty good niche in recruiting the junior college kids and developing them. And I think the fruits of their labor certainly have paid off.
This is a year in which UTEP has a chance to reach bowl games for back-to-back seasons for the first time since Mike Price was back here in 2004 and 2005. That right there is something special, John. That's a historic accomplishment that this UTEP football team really wants to try to get back to, and that is consistent winning, consistent success year after year.
Well, you bet it's something special, and these kids have an opportunity to do a number of special things that haven't been done in a very long time, have never been done with the program here at UTEP. Consider that UTEP has not won a conference football championship since 2000, has never won a Conference USA football crown, and beginning their 18th season as members of Conference USA. If these kids could accomplish that, they do something that's never been done in the history of this program. And as you mentioned, it's been nearly 20 years since back-to-back bowl appearances. Let's shock the world. Let's do something that hasn't been done by UTEP football in a very long time.
Now, John, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this and bring this up. You're working with a new color commentator this season that you're teaming up. Tell us about your new partner who we're going to get to talk to here coming up on the podcast.
Really excited about Cole Freytag, Adrian, obviously in El Paso young man, prepped at Coronado High School. I think he walked on here at UTEP initially and worked his way into a prominent role, was one of the top receivers in the program by the time he reached his senior campaign. I think Cole will be a nice balance for me, kind of being the established old guy. He kind of brings the youthful exuberance, obviously understands the game inside and out, has done a little media work on his own. So I like what Cole brings to the mix. Most importantly, he's excited about this opportunity. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun calling UTEP football games for Miner fans this fall.
Cole Freytag, one of my favorites, especially to talk to in interviews. He always treated me real well, so I'm very fired up for this pairing coming up this fall. Jon, thank you so much for all the great time today on the MinerTalk podcast. Can't wait for the first game coming up here on Saturday, August 27th.
Oh, you and me both, my friend. Thanks, Adrian.
Appreciate Voice of the Miners, Jon Teicher, and as he talked about to close out that segment, we are now welcoming on his new broadcast partner. It's Cole Freytag, one of UTEP's standout players who graduated in 2016. He's a local product from Coronado High School, born in El Paso, and now he joins Jon Teicher, Voice of the Miners, in the booth for this upcoming football season. I'm so fired up about this, Cole, and what was your initial reaction when you got that call from Teicher regarding being his broadcast partner for these UTEP football games?
Yeah, it kind of came out of the blue. I actually had a conversation with him maybe a year and a half ago about potentially getting into this. I actually had the chance of working with Mondo Medina with the high school football broadcasting maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago for the fall season. And I did a lot of the Coronado football games, and I really enjoyed it. Just with the Friday nights, it didn't fit into my schedule that great, and there were kind of a lot of moving pieces there. But, Jon called me. It really came out of the blue, like you said. I was really fired up about it. I've kind of been looking for a way to get back into football in one facet or another, whether it be coaching or broadcasting. So it ended up kind of being the perfect storm, and it fit. And I told Jon I'm excited to do it and work with him. So it should be a fun season.
For listeners who remember you, they'll know exactly who you are. But for those who kind of maybe forgot since you graduated in 2016, what kind of personality you're going to bring to the booth? Or what's your style, I should say?
Yeah, I'd like to think it's going to be pretty natural. I'd compare myself maybe to Tony Romo. I'm just going to kind of stick to what I know. I've been around football for a very long time. I've been around UTEP for a while now. I'm obviously an avid fan there. I'm a fan of football in general. I'm really going to try to go up there and be myself. I'll obviously follow Jon's lead. He's done such a great job with this for so many years. And that's really why I was able to kind of make this strong commitment. I knew that, Jon, like I said, is going to make it extremely easy, and he'll be someone fun to work with. And, again, I'm going to keep it light. I think I'll bring a lot of knowledge to the broadcast booth as far as a football perspective goes. And, like I said, just kind of having fun with it. So.
You're somebody who got a chance to witness highs and lows with the UTEP football team, and you saw a team go to a bowl game back in 2014 when you were a sophomore. You played in all 13 games on offense, and that was the year when you guys went to the New Mexico Bowl. But then you also saw some of the lower points of this program, as a whole. But how can you bring, what kind of perspective can you bring to this UTEP football team, just knowing what kind of expectations are placed on this group specifically in 2022?
Yeah, well, I've always said, and this really, was a thing for me when I was there at UTEP. I mean, losing can become a culture just as quickly as winning can. And it's hard when you've been, used to having, back-to-back losing seasons where you've never had a taste of winning in a consistent manner. And that's where I really think Coach Dimmel's done a great job already of kind of creating that winning culture, knowing what that feels like. I think that's fired up a lot of the guys as far as, like I said, just having a taste of that and what it takes to get to that level, because it's not an easy thing year in and year out to kind of come in and compete and have a winning record. So I really think so much of it is consistency. Obviously not having a high turnover, which is going to be a battle right now in college football in general as far as returning starters and coaching staff. But, like I said, I really think Coach Dimel's done a great job of that already. And I think a lot of people, not only myself, but around the city are fired up as far as the direction he has this training going forward. So it's pretty exciting to see right now.
You mentioned just kind of different eras. You mentioned the transfer portal, but I'm thinking if Cole Freytag was a UTEP minor in 2022, you might have a couple NIL deals right there. I mean, hey, a local product, local standout. I'm bummed for you that you didn't get a chance to capitalize on this NIL, culture that we live in right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like there's kind of this misconception right now that you've got to go outside of El Paso to get something like that done. But, I mean, obviously UTEP's our major sports program here. We don't have any pro NFL teams. So I feel like this is the right market for, anybody really to come in here and have a chance to shine and also get some of that stuff done. So people talking of it in a negative light as far as it being the small school and having one good year and being able to go outside. But, I mean, if you want to come here and kind of be the stud and be under the spotlight, I think there's a lot of potential for that. So, it's an exciting time for a lot of these kids to get stuff like that done. And again, I just think it has to be the right situation. But yeah, this would have been a pretty fun thing to be a part of back in the day for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I'm reflecting back on your career at UTEP. I mean, some of the highlights. I remember your senior year. You just had a standout season. One of the games that stands out, at least off the top of my head, was the last game against North Texas when you just you balled out. You had a 30-yard touchdown catch. That was senior day for you. I'm sure that was an emotional game. Another big highlight was just your team beating New Mexico State in that crazy come from behind overtime win, and you had a big game in that one as well. What are some of the games or moments in your UTEP career that really stand out?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, like you said, were some of those games senior year, obviously beating New Mexico State on the road there in that overtime game with Ryan Metz at quarterback. I think it was Cedric Lane that had the go-ahead touchdown there in overtime, which was pretty exciting. That season, though, I look back on that, and it's crazy how quickly that stuff can change. We had so much potential. I mean, before the season, if you would have talked to me, I would have said, it was going to be a given that we'd be at least be committing to, having a spot in a bowl game. And, we just had injuries happen at the wrong time. There were a couple games we started slow, and, we might have played well in the middle of the game, but we couldn't make up enough to come back and win it. So it's one of those things that, from a perspective standpoint, it's a good example of, you can have all the players and all the talent and kind of everything else come together, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't all come together at the same time, you're still going to continue to struggle. So, we got a chance to play in some really cool stadiums. I remember going to North Texas, and Kevin Durant was on the sideline for that game, which was a pretty cool experience. It was very competitive in the first half. Aaron had a big game. All those moments with our teammates are stuff that I won't forget for the rest of my life. And I was just blessed, honestly, at the end of the day, to have a chance to play for UTEP, and it really turned out to be the best case scenario for me. So,
how cool is it to see some of these guys in the pros that you used to share, a locker room with? I mean, Will Hernandez, Aaron Jones. You're seeing these guys play on Sundays and stand out in their profession.
Yeah, and like I said, so much of that goes back to, you look at some of these guys that we had on that team my senior year: Aaron Jones, Will Hernandez, Roy Robertson, Nick Needham. So it's crazy to think back on how much NFL talent we had on that team. And again, it just goes to show you can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't put it all together from a team perspective, then you're still going to struggle. But I just honestly so happy for those guys. I talk about them all the time. I love to tell my friends about them. I'm so proud of what they're doing and how they love to put UTEP on the map, Aaron specifically. But, yeah, just obviously continue to kind of follow those guys and keep up with them. And, yeah, it's been pretty amazing to see. Pretty cool for those guys. So,
do you have any good Aaron Jones stories?
Man, Aaron was always so mild-mannered. I mean, the thing about him, and people ask me about him all the time, like, what was he like on the field? And he just always kept his cool. No situation was ever too big for him. He obviously came from very humble beginnings. His dad was the guy out at our UTEP summer practices when we might be practicing 7-on-7 like that, giving us Gatorade and water and kind of always cheering us on. So Aaron was just as big of a star as he was in El Paso. He was equally as humble. And that just, from a team perspective, kind of always made us more hungry to be better and kind of surround him with the pieces that he needed to be successful. But more than anything, man, he was just a down-to-earth, easy guy to talk to. And I think that still reflects today with as much success he's had even in the NFL. So,
Yeah, let's turn the page. Let's look on to this season because the Miners are coming off a 7-6 finish last year, a bowl game loss to Fresno State, but a real nice effort that they had closing out last season. Give me your thoughts on this upcoming year because it's a favorable schedule for UTEP. And Dana Dimel's now entering his 5th year at the helm of the coaching staff here with the Miners, and he's he has a lot of returning players all across the board.
Yeah, like you talked about. I mean, you talk about the two-headed monster at the running back position, and then returning Gavin is obviously going to be a huge part of it. I know they've got a lot of JUCO guys coming in from some of the practices I've been out to and some of the articles I've read online, which I think is going to be a nature of college football in general now. And you talk about the transfer portal and how easily that's going to be accessible to these players as far as being able to come in for a year and then transfer out. But now with JUCO guys, that kind of used to be a negative persona. But now if they can kind of come in and put a good year in, a lot of those guys aren't going to want to leave for 1 year and take a chance at another school. So I think Dana Dimel's always done a really good job of kind of recruiting players, especially of a high talent level, to kind of come in and play immediately in the UTEP program. So I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. But again, I just think if you can have a consistent running back, you have a quarterback with experience under the center. And I think, again, that's a 75% of, setting up this team for success for the football season this year. So really looking forward to following UTEP. Again, I'm excited to be around the program this year. I think there's a lot of good things to look forward to.
As we wrap things up, Cole, thanks so much for all the great time today. Joining Voice of the Miners, Jon Teicher, in the booth is one thing, but also joining this booth knowing that the Miners have a chance to do something special this year, and that's go to back-to-back bowl games for the first time since 2004, 2005, when Mike Price was leading the helm for this program. What does that make it a little bit more special? You're joining the booth and being the color commentator voice of the Miners here.
Yeah, I mean, even hearing you say that right now, it just kind of gave me chills. I'm so fired up as far as the direction this program's going in. I think the city is behind them now. I think they've done so many things the right way. I've even talked to people kind of around town lately who have met some of the guys on the team this year, and they just talk about, their stand-up personalities and that they're personable and that you can tell they care about El Paso and they care about winning. And I think, again, the city has deserved something like that for a long time. So, again, that was a huge piece, along with working with Jon, as far as me committing to kind of doing this thing going forward. Again, I'm so excited to be a part of it. I think the future is bright for the UTEP football team, and I'm excited to go along for the ride. So it's definitely good to be back, Adrian. I appreciate you having me on today.
I just have to say, Cole, I'm fired up about having you, but I have to warn you, now that you're in this position, we are going to be bugging you left and right, asking you to join MinerTalk, join Sports Talk with Steve Kaplowitz and myself. So, expect a lot of texts from us throughout the season.
Yeah, I'm ready to talk football again, man. It's good to be back. I'm actually excited for that stuff. So anytime you need me, feel free to reach out. And again, looking forward to a fun season this year. So,
yeah, us as well, Cole. Thanks again for all the great time.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Back to the MinerTalk podcast. I'm here with UTEP starting quarterback Gavin Hardison following practice today. Gavin, thanks so much for doing this. How's everything going?
It's going good. It's going well. It's a good start to fall camp for us as a team, and we're just coming out here and working every day.
Fall camp is all about leaders. Leaders are built in fall camp. Who are some of the leaders on this team?
We have a good amount of leaders on our team, offensively and defensively, and so, we have a lot of guys that stepped up, and we have a lot of guys that have come back and have a lot of experience on this team. So, it's a benefit for us.
What kind of a leader are you?
I try to be a lead by example type of a guy, and I'm not the most outspoken guy in the world, but there's a time and place where I try to step up and be an outspoken leader, but I just try to lead by example and just be the best team that I can be.
I can see you got a little bit more swagger, more moxie after practices. Would you agree?
Possibly. I think that look good, feel good, play good. I guess that's what Deion Sanders says.
What do fans see from you this year? Because fans really were amazed by the fact that you carried on a starting position. I mean, UTEP quarterbacks don't come starting year after year, and you're doing it now. This is the third year entering as a starter. What can the fans expect from you this year?
I'm just trying to elevate my game, getting better in every way possible and every way I see fit. And so, just an elevated season for myself personally. But, I'm really just trying to execute my job out for this football team. And, whatever that is, I just want to win games for us.
What do you think of the schedule?
I think our schedule's put together really well. I want to say we go 7 weeks in a row before our first bye week. So, it's going to be a grind, but at the same time, I think that we just got to take it 1 week at a time and focus week to week.
You like playing on week 0?
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun environment, TV and all that stuff. And so, it's big for us and our program and exciting. And, it's a way to get the season started earlier.
What'd you add to your game this offseason?
That's a secret. I can't tell you.
Okay, no worries. What kind of play calling abilities do you have at the line of scrimmage? Because that's what Coach talks a lot to us about. That he loves the fact that you've grown at that level. You can call plays at the line. You can change different things. What goes through your head like that?
Trying to make quick decisions and trust what I see and what the defense is doing, and trust the film study and stuff like that. And so, I think it just comes with time, and I feel like I still have a ways to go in that, but I'm working.
Tell me some of your receivers and tell me what they do.
Oh man, we have Tyron Smith. He's coming back. He makes plays for us. He's a big time guy. Kelly Akari, he's a new guy. He's really stepping in. Ray Flores, he's a very dependable guy. He does everything right. Jocelyn Clark, he was here last year. Makes big time plays for us. Walter Don has been in the program for a while, and he brings a lot of experience. Amari White is a younger guy that's coming in and stepping up. Jeremiah Ballard, he's a bigger receiver, makes plays. Lucas Flores, the younger brother of Frey, he really has stepped up big and making plays for us, making sure I don't miss anyone. Josh Farr has been the dependable guy, really trying to step up and almost as a leader to those guys. He's been here a little while. And then a few new guys a few new guys. Marcus Bellin came in, and Kyle McNamara. And I'm sure I'm missing someone, but we have a lot of guys.
I got you. I put you on the spot there. All right, your two tight ends. I love them. Zach Fryer and Trent Thompson. Fans will wonder, well, why doesn't Gavin throw it to him? But I always just say, look at the film. Watch the game. You're not watching it because these guys are blocking every single down, and they're some of the best blocking tight ends you're going to see. And if they're in the passing game, it's not like you're avoiding them. You're still going to look their way, and you're still going to try to find them if they're open. So how do you guys use the tight ends? Tell me a little bit about that.
Tight end is a big part of our offense and what we do. Our tight end has to be extremely smart. First off, on what the defense is doing, what on the fronts and all that stuff, and they got to be able to block, pass block, run block, and run routes. And so, but I think that those guys handle that role well.
Elijah Klein was the only guy to get some love from the Conference USA preseason list from the offensive line. Andrew Mayers brings back experience. You guys got a lot of experience on that offensive front. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that offensive line.
Yeah, our offensive line has been really rock solid for us in this fall camp so far. Jeremiah Byers coming back. He has experience and he's a great player. Obviously, Elijah Klein, like you mentioned, is a great player for us, great leader on that offense. Andrew's a big-time leader for us. Justin Mayers is a big-time player. He's young, but he has a lot of talent. Missouri Henry has a lot of talent. Stephen Hubbard, he can play a whole lot of different positions for us. Robert Mervin, same way. He can play a lot of different positions for us. We have some depth on that O-line, but we also have experience, so it works out.
Ronnie Awad and Dion, man, that's a great 1-2 punch at the running back position. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no doubt. Those two guys have. That last year, ran hard, and they just continue to improve and continue to work on their game. And I'm excited to watch them run this year.
The outside narrative last year was, hey, the defense is great. It's just about what is the offense going to do. How do you guys try to change that narrative, even though you guys are confident in your own abilities?
Just focus on what we have to do week in and week out, and continue to do our job and take what the defense gives us and make plays and move the ball. Get first downs and put points on the board. Don't settle for field goals. Score touchdowns.
Isn't it crazy to think it's like 3 weeks away till opening kickoff?
Yeah, it is. It came fast, but we're ready for it. We've been preparing all summer and all spring, and we were really motivated after our last time we played, and so we have a lot to prove this year.
You've never been one to talk about over excessive goals, ever set too high of things like that. But any personal goals that you have, like that you have been kind of eyeing these past couple of years, and you just want to say, hey, I'm coming out here and I want to do stuff like this.
For me personally, I feel like if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then stats and numbers will come. If you worry about stats and numbers, then you're going to start forcing things and start making plays that you shouldn't be making. And so I really just try to focus on what I'm supposed to be doing each play, and the stats and all that stuff will come.
You've always been described as somebody who just wants to win. That's all you care about is wins. What would a bowl win mean for you? I mean, it hasn't happened since 1967 here at UTEP. I mean, the season aside, whether it's this year or next year, whenever, what would a bowl win mean for you, knowing that you'd be the first to do it in over 50 years?
It'd be huge for our program and huge for what we're doing here. But at the same time, we got a ways to get there, and we gotta make sure we get there first. And one of our goals is to get to that conference championship game, and so we want to try to take care of business on that first. But once we get to that bowl game, it'd be huge for us. But I'm just trying to go 1-0 every week.
August 27th, the expectation is a sellout. Did you hear anything about the last time UTEP sold out a game against Texas?
Yeah, I've heard a few things. About it.
It was like a 50-50 split.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. I've heard people were sitting on the mountain and all kinds of stuff. So
a lot of all kinds of stuff. You're exactly right. But the 50-50 split was half Texas, half UTEP. This time around, if it's a sellout, it's probably going to be 95% all UTEP, which is pretty cool to even think about, right?
Yeah, for sure, most definitely. It'd be huge for all the fans that come out and support. We have a lot of hype building around this season, but at the same time, it just really comes down to us doing our job every play.
Is that a dream of yours, to play in front of a sold-out crowd like that?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, you always want to play in front of those huge crowds, and it's exciting. It gets everyone going, but you don't have to really motivate me a whole lot to get ready for a game.
Hey, Gavin, thanks so much for doing this.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome into the MinerTalk podcast. I'm Adrian Broaddus. Joined with me is one of the presenting sponsors here on MinerTalk, Oscar Arrieta from the Oscar Arrieta Agency. You can see him at all 7 locations, and the reason why we're doing this today is a very special reason. We're actually doing this because we're celebrating 25 years of serving El Paso from the west side to Fabens, the Oscar Arrieta Agency. You hear him all the time on MinerTalk. Oscar, thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations on 25 years. That's pretty special.
Hey, thank you, Adrian. Thank you for inviting me to be on this talk show. I love 600 AM. Actually, I was thinking that I grew up listening to 600 AM because of my dad. And I'm always listening to it. I love to hear your great host, and thank you. I'm very humbled and honored to be part of this today.
So take me all the way back to 1997, because opening up an agency for the first time and doing something like this must be a very interesting journey. What kind of growing pains kind of started off when you first got this agency going?
Wow, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of growing pains that we went through in my 25 years. But I'll share something with you. Within these 25 years, I wanted to go bankrupt twice. That gut feeling when you ran out of money, you got nothing, you don't know what's going to come the following day, you don't know if you're going to be able to pay the electric bill, you're crossing your fingers, please don't cut off the electric bill, we need the light. Payroll, we don't know if you're going to meet the payroll. And what I've learned is it's so important to have the right people around you. You got to have the right people around you. And both instances, I had the right people to tell me, hey, Oscar, we're here, we're going to pull, don't, let's go, we can do this. And to this day, I'm very thankful for those employees that were there with me, thinking they believed in me, because I had stopped believing in myself that we could do it, and we thought everything was over. And 25 years I'm sitting here because of people that surround me that were instrumental in not giving up and believing in me.
If you took who you are today and you went all the way back to 1997 and you said, hey, guess what? You're going to have 7 locations in this city. It's not just going to be this one location in Fabens where you made your name and you made your staple and started things off. It's going to be all across the city of El Paso. What do you think you would have said back in 97?
You're crazy. You're crazy. That we're thought to dream big. And yes, when I opened, I was dreaming big, but I was dreaming big based on what I could even see it with my eyes, right? Open an agency and maybe grow it to a certain amount of policies, a certain amount of clients, and just be, in that moment, what I define success is like, oh, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm making a living. I'm able to pay my mortgage, and I'm able to do this. And I got 1-2 employees, because usually the most agents only had a couple of employees. And so I was following the exact path, and never thought that I was going to go in multiple agencies. And going back to the people that you have, if you have the right people there, they're always going to push you. And if you have the heart and saying, hey, you want them to grow, well, they're going to push you to grow also. And I think that that has been very instrumental to us, that in these 25 years, as we've been expanding, there was an instance that in 2006, I opened 2 additional agencies. I bought an agency and started scratch. And around 2010, I'm thinking, I had 3 agencies. I'm like, I'll never, ever open up another agency. I'm okay with what I have. What happened is that in 2010, we started to see a growth, and we started to focus on building leaders within my agency. All of a sudden, in 2011, I buy my 4th one. I'm saying, okay, we bought our 4th one. That's it. We can't do more. In 2018, we did our 5th one. And in 2020, while COVID was going, 2021, which was last year, we acquired 2 additional, and we have 7. And I've learned that I will never, ever say, no, 7 is fine. I think that as you build leaders, you're able to continue to grow.
That makes a lot of sense. And what's so interesting is you're in El Paso, and you do this with the city of El Paso kind of behind you, because, like you said, it's leaders who you employ here in this building and all your other 7 buildings. What's it like doing this, knowing that you're doing it here in El Paso, in the 915, just knowing how much city support we've gotten over the past recent years?
Oh, it's amazing. I think that El Paso, I love El Paso. I love it with all my heart. I've been blessed to be traveled around the United States and gone to New York City, Dallas, big cities that you think that a lot of people say, oh, it's not El Paso. And I'm like, there's something about El Paso, and I will tell you with what it is. It's the people. There's no people like the El Paso people. That's what makes El Paso great. I just read a social media post on this week about this comedian that was trashing El Paso. Like, I don't want to go to El Paso. Why do I need to go and stuff? He's focusing on El Paso, but I would tell him, you haven't met the El Paso people. Because the El Paso people is what makes El Paso. El Paso doesn't make the people, it's the people. And we're super blessed to have these amazing people of the 915.
Yeah, it's such a special community. It's understandable why people like Aaron Jones puts the city on the map. It's understandable why
an artist like Khalid always wants to give back to this city, and you do so much giving back to this community as well through Allstate and through your agency. You do a lot of things where you're out in the community, involved, especially around the winter time. You guys do so much. Can you talk a little bit about how it's grown from the start of kind of giving back to the community, and maybe why you feel like that's such a big thing for you all?
Well, I think that first and foremost, God has blessed me a lot. So, I started from this small community that I grew up in Fabens. I'm from Fabens. I'm proud to say that I'm from Fabens. And when I first opened my business, I saw that Fabens was being underserved, and I wanted to build do the insurance, building my insurance agency out there, but with high quality and give back. And so I started small with them, and from there it has just expanded. I've seen how God has blessed me, and when you're blessed, you got to give back. So I believe in, I guess you can say that I started from Fabens, but now we went into Horizon City, and then we went to El Paso, and now we're all across, and seeing that we got this blessing, and we're able to give back to the community, back to UTEP, back to the local schools. And I'm huge in the community, to giving back to the community, because I started from a local, and I think that when we instilled with my staff, when we say, hey, we're going to do this, they're all for it. Like, let's go. We're doing a project where we're going to go paint some houses, and I didn't initiate that. I had a manager from one of my office that says, hey, Oscar, wouldn't it be nice for us to do this? I said, set it up, and you have all my support, and let's do it. So that's what we're doing, and I'm glad when people feel the same way I feel.
Oh, yes. I mean, giving back to the community is such a huge thing in this city. Now, let me ask you this. As a business owner and somebody who's been a part of this community for a long time, how have you seen this city grow? That's such a loaded question, too, because you look at your West Side location, I'm 25 years, there was nothing in that area whatsoever, even out of the last decade. So now you see how far the West Side is expanding. Your Horizon location, it's a whole new city out there, and your Eastlake location, this city's growing like crazy.
It is. I remember when we opened in Horizon, it was a retirement community. When I first opened in Fabens, I had people laugh at me from the El Paso agents and say, hey, what are you going to do? Sell insurance to horses and stuff? I've just seen, I think I've been blessed to see how this has grown, El Paso, how it is grown, and we've been part of it. West Side, when we first opened our West Side location in 2018, all that was pure desert. I was one of the first businesses that opened in that location, at the West Town location. Now you go out there, traffic is really, we love the traffic as a business, but if you're stuck in traffic, you hate it. But it's grown, and I think that's a testament of what we were talking about, that, El Paso, people are staying. They're very comfortable. It's a great community when you get to know the people. Why leave El Paso?
Yeah, there's no reason to. In my opinion, I love this city. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about just being a business owner, and maybe some advice you can give, because we understand as a community there are local businesses, small business, bigger businesses out there. As somebody who's just sustained longevity in this city and been here for over 2 decades now, are there any tips or advice you give to business owners who are trying to get to that level, and maybe it's not necessarily to that level, but just to have success and to show what you could do in this city?
Yeah, I tend to do a lot of networking, to give advice, but also to receive advice. I said earlier that it's important for us for you to surround yourself with great people, with like-minded people, because it's important. As a business owner, you got to look for leadership, people that are going to inspire you. And my suggestion always to anybody that's building that wants to open a business or has a business or is going through a growing pain like I did, that you're thinking, this is it. I'm not going to make it. One of the things I tell them is don't give up. Don't give up. You got to continue to the last day, to the last moment, to the last penny that you have. Because if you do end up closing, because there's instances that you do have to close, but you don't want to go with that feeling that if I would have just stayed a little bit longer. And I have so many acquaintances that were in the same boat that I was, and they got the same advice either from me or somebody else, and they stayed, and now they're very successful. You know, success is not defined if you lose your money or lose all your money or you can't pay your bill. Success to me is defined by, you know, how many people do you touch? You know, how many people do you impact? And based on that, you know, if you focus on how many people you can impact, and you shift your focus from the money wise, because money doesn't define you, then I think you can be very successful. I think we have many people can be very successful.
I agree. I think that's definitely the case. Now I want to talk some UTEP. This is the fun part right here. Here we go.
Go Miners!
We had to get it. We'll get another one in later on before we end up. Oscar, this UTEP football team, let's just jump right into it. They have high expectations. Coming off a bowl game last year, not a bowl win. They won a bowl win. They won 7 games last year, a first winning season in 7 years. We're talking about a winner. Isn't that crazy? And expectations. It's kind of crazy to see that.
Yeah, right? I'm super excited for this football season. Very excited. I think great things are to come, and I think the community is also now all in.
I think so too. This 915 initiative is real interesting that they have. You guys have been a part of it. We noticed the agency on the commercial and the promo video that they posted.
Yes, and actually it was in this agency that we recorded that, and we're super excited. I love the motto, Rise Up 915. So
yeah, it's a great motto. How'd you get first involved in UTEP sports, and how's that relationship developed with UTEP?
It's funny you're talking about Rise Up 915. So I'll take you to when UTEP hired Mike Price. You know, that was in 2004, and they invited a group of All-State agents to be part of a big sponsorship. And, you know, that was actually my first time going out there to meeting, you know, Jon Teicher, the famous Jon Teicher. And they pitched this idea of being the sponsorship. And, you know, it was with a group of agents, and we pretty much all pitched in. And Mike Price comes out of the room and he says, guys, we need you. And this is our motto. And our motto back then, and I never forget it, is, can you believe? Believe, you know? And it was almost like a question telling it to the community. You know, believe. Can you believe? And when I heard Mike Price come out with that, I'm like, wow, it's amazing. I want to believe now. Yeah. Well, guess what? 2004, they made the bowl.
Yep.
And
winning season.
They had a winning season, and now I'm always anxious, like, what's the next model for UTEP, you know? And I love that this year they came out with Rise Up 915, but that's 2004 is when I really started. And, you know, back then the sponsorship was really small for us because we're a group, but that's when we grew, and then later on we started to do more. And when I saw that, hey, this is something nice, and I could see, you know, the community responding, I said, I got to do this every year. And from here on, I'm hooked with UTEP. I'm a big UTEP supporter. I will always support my UTEP Miners, win or lose. I'm always there. Of course, we always want them to lose, but I mean to win. I'm sorry. We want them to win all the time, but even if they lose, you know, I'm always going to have their back.
Yeah, that's awesome, because this community really needs more supporters like that. Hey, you've heard our show. We get a lot of callers on all spectrums. So yeah. People are frustrated at times, and people are excited, and I get it, right? Because especially coming off a bowl win, a bowl game. I keep saying a win. I'm manifesting it right here. Yeah. But they come
come off that game and you kind of feel like there's still more left in the tank with this group. There's still a lot of excitement. And you guys bring a lot of excitement each game day. That's what I like about you, the Oscar Arrieta agency. At the home games, you guys are out there tabling, doing different things, sometimes giving away different items. One of my favorite things that you gave away was the seat cushions. My whole family had the Oscar Arrieta agency seat cushions. They were resting when they were getting a chance to go to the home games. What's it like doing those giveaways and just meeting UTEP fans on a game-to-game basis?
It's awesome. You get to meet, going back to, the call-ins, it's always good. You want to have that criticism, but it's all about passion. All these fans are very, very passionate, and expectations are high, and that's fair. But when we're giving out giveaways, it's the same thing. People come up to us and say, "Hey, do you still have those cushions that you have, or do you have the fingers, the fingers with the number 1 sticking out with about UTEP, and you have this and that, or why don't you raffling this?" And we get all types of opinions, and we love it because I don't look at it as a criticism. I'm looking like, hey, they're all into it. Let's go for it. But I love giving away a lot of things. We've done T-shirts. I mean, you tell me, and we've pretty much done many, many things, and we'll continue to do this because I think that it's a great blessing that that we have the means to be able to give back to the community.
I agree. That's an awesome thing right there. People love it. People love the giveaways and things like that when they go to the games. It makes them feel good for sure. Oscar, when it comes to sports, you're just a big sports fan in general. You're a big UTEP basketball fan, big UTEP football fan, huge Cowboy fan.
Yes.
For all our listeners out there who love the Cowboys and who despise them. But can I ask you this? Any particular sports moment in your life that stands out, that like just a memory that you cling on to in sports that really just kind of, you always kind of go back to?
Yes, it was 1980. I don't want to get because my fans are getting, but I believe it was 1988, 89. We won the first round in basketball, UTEP basketball. Tim Hardaway was a senior. You had Greg Foster and Antonio Davis. I was a freshman in high school. And out there in Fabens, and Fabens shut down. I remember this, you have no internet back then, so it's not like you're streaming on your iPhone. We had nothing out there. So they shut down, and they put the big tube TVs in the classroom, and we're watching, it was a day game, and we're watching the second round of the NCAA playoffs. You're watching UTEP. And I believe they were playing Indiana. I think it was Indiana. And we lost the second round, but that's when I said, wow, that's amazing. I fell in love with Tim Hardaway, Antonio Davis, Greg Foster. Says, that's a great team play. And from there on, the following year, they made the playoffs again, the NCAA tournament. And I fell in love with UTEP right there and then, freshman year in high school. And it's a certain emotion that you can't describe to anybody. You gotta feel it. And I'm just in love with the UTEP sports, with basketball. I went to every single basketball game last year. I think I only missed one, and that was because I was feeling down. I was feeling a little bit sick. But I love it.
Yeah, it's hard not to love UTEP basketball and football and stuff like that, and just get involved. So great story right there, Oscar. As we wind things down, as you kind of reflect back on the 25 years that you've spent here in El Paso and Fabens and all the surrounding areas serving the community with your insurance agency, what has the journey meant to you personally? This is one of those kind of milestones right there where you strike it off, and hey, it's on 30, now it's on 35 and 40. What's the journey meant to you this far?
Well, first of all, as we celebrate the 25 years, I give thanks to God. I think I give thanks to my family, to my past and present employees, to all my friends, to my business acquaintances. every person that has been a part of this journey of mine. I give thanks, and I go back to what I was saying, that when you surround yourself with the right people, this is what's here for the future is endless. You can do amazing things, but what I reflect back is that this could not have been done with me, myself. I needed the people. I need the people. I thank my clients also, because, I'm here today because of my clients. And when we started in July of 1997, we started with one customer. That one customer is the one that initiated what we are today. So yes, there's so many things that have happened, and I thank all my clients that we've been able to protect what they love the most, and they've put the trust in me and in my team, and we're going for more. Like I said earlier, it's not going to be. I don't know if it's going to be 7 locations. That's that's it, or we're going to go, next year or in a few years. When we hit 30 years, we're going to be doing another podcast, maybe with holograms or something, and saying, hey, how many agencies do you have? Now we have 15 agencies across New Mexico and Texas and Arizona. We don't know, but I thank God for what we've done, what He has given us.
Any kind of tips you can share, or any things that you can say on the horizon, new things that we can be aware of for the 25th year celebration that people can keep an eye out for?
Yeah, so this is a big thing. So we got 7 locations. We just finished in the last few weeks ago. We started to get all the dates. Every single location of my agency started in August 5th, which in this location at 1506 North Lee Chirino, we will start having customer appreciations. We're going to raffle TVs. We're going to raffle Cirque du Soleil tickets, Disney on Ice tickets. We're going to do many things. We're going to do a lot of giveaways. Also, we're going to have UTEP players come out here, so meet and greet, sign, have them take, for you and your family, take pictures with them. So we're going to do a lot of things, and we're going to do August, September, and October, because we would love to do this in 1 week, but it's impossible. So we're going to spread it out, and I invite all my clients, any listeners, 600 AM listeners, people listen on YouTube. If you want to come and see what we're all about, just come in. You don't have to be a client of ours. Just come in and enjoy a free hot dog, a free hamburger, drink. Maybe you'll be the lucky winner of a prize.
As somebody who's been to many of these customer appreciation events, I think you should call them customer parties, because they're just a big party. You have an open door policy. Everybody can come in, get treats, get fed, get giveaways, meet people. Yeah. It's a great time. So I appreciate the fact that you're having those. That's awesome. Oscar, you've been great. Thank you so much for all the time that you spent with us today. And then we need one more time. We need to go Miners for one more time.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Go Miners!
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
Our next segment here on our MinerTalk podcast. Joining me is the co-host of MinerTalk, Sal Montes, who's getting ready for another season of MinerTalk, joining me along with Jason Craig. Sal, what people don't understand is during the off season, you're just as busy as you are in the season for UTEP athletics. You're the lead producer for UTEP football and UTEP men's basketball, along with the co-host of MinerTalk. But you are also the lead producer for the El Paso Chihuahuas, along with some of our other members of our 600 ESPN El Paso team who join you. But you work closely with Tim Haggerty on all these different broadcasts, and now it's back. We're back in action, man. We're ready to go.
Yeah, back in the saddle, right? Straight to it. It's crazy because you mentioned there's off season, but there's really no off season. It's just, I guess, off season staying away from the sport itself. But in terms of activity, always being active, man. I mean, there's Chihuahuas baseball, as you mentioned. A really, really busy time with that because we always I mean, Chihuahua season ends, and we know football season's right around the corner, and then like a month and a half or 2 months from that, basketball season's in effect, and it's just, the full grind of it. But it's always fun. It keeps us busy, and I mean, if you love sports, how could you not enjoy it, every second of it? So, yeah, I'm excited to be at it again for MinerTalk. I think it's, year number 4?
Year number 4.
Year number 4, man, and that's just MinerTalk. You and I go way back, too, even before that, so it's always fun getting to produce and, work with you for these games, man. It's a blessing.
No, it's always a blessing on my end, man. It's a pleasure's on mine. I think we've developed such a good rapport. I mean, we're friends on and off the mic, I should say, on and off the court.
True.
On and off the mic. So it works real easily for us. And, you and I feel like I think I get told this. I'm sure you get told this, but you and I have real good, we have that chemistry. I know I kind of know where you're going on things. You know where I'm going on things. We have the feel for each other, man.
Yeah, it's
after 4 years.
After watching Winning Time, it's kind of like it's Kareem and Magic.
All right, you be Magic. You be Magic.
Oh, man,
I love that, man.
No, but yeah, we have great rapport, man. It's always fun. We kind of know where to pick up from each other's last sentence and statements, and we just have a really, really good sense of chemistry and unison, man. It's always fun.
Let's be honest, though. It's the listeners. It's the people who chime in on Twitter. It's the callers who really make MinerTalk, and we're always so appreciative of them. I get it a lot where somebody says, wow, you had that great caller last week, or I love the caller's points, or all that kind of stuff. And that's the lifeblood of MinerTalk, right, Sal? That's what I feel like that's what energizes us. We know what kind of show it's going to be based off the game. If there's some drama going on in the game, we know that we're going to be on for a while. We're going to put in a couple hours on MinerTalk, if maybe a little bit more. And I think that's what the fun part about it, right? Like just kind of the pre-show stuff, hanging out here beforehand, coming up with talking points, riling up the listeners and stirring up different things. That's the fun part about MinerTalk.
Yeah, it's fun because the show goes in a direction, I'd say 99.99% of the time, that the listeners take it. Because you mentioned we come up with our talking points, we'll have our topics we want to hit on, but very rarely do we get to it from beginning to end because a listener brings up a great point, or they bring up something that they noticed, and that kind of steers the show in a way too. So without the listeners, man, the show really wouldn't exist. And when 600 got the minor games again, one of the first things that people asked, literally like within minutes of the announcement, is MinerTalk back? And it's kind of the inception of the rebirth, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think the rebirth has been a lot of fun because it's given Miner fans a platform to voice either their excitement about the team, their displeasures with the team, their concerns, their optimism, their skepticism. That's what makes it all fun. It's a community right there. And I think it's really interesting to see where this show has grown because back in 2019, man, those were some brutal shows. I mean, brutal. UTEP was getting murdered. They were getting waxed left and right. It just seemed like there was no hope. You had a lot of fans calling in saying that Dana Dimel should be fired. We had to be the voice of kind of reason, saying like, hey, it's just year one. It's just year two at that point. Let's not really. They're going to give this a little bit more time to see the full rebuild take place. And it was a lot of trying to convince fans to remain patient. And now the narrative is flipped. It's expectations that are placed on this team to have success coming off a 7-win season. And rightfully so, because this is a team right here that brings back about 9 starters on offense, about 6 starters on defense, if you really look at the makeup of things, and comes into this season. Yeah, of course, the first stretch of the year is a little challenging. But at the end of the season, especially in Conference USA play, the schedule is very favorable, Sal, which makes me think that maybe this optimism is warranted on the UTEP Miners side.
Yeah, definitely, because they're coming off of a bowl appearance. And a lot of players returning to the team, as you mentioned. Of course, there's some departures. Guys wanted to make that next step, and rightfully so. Props to them. Thank you for your time at UTEP. But now it's time for guys to step up. But you also, as we mentioned, there's guys who have been part of that fire, guys who can show the newcomers the ropes, and also guys who have those expectations themselves. I mean, the fans, media, there's a lot of hype for this team, even outside of El Paso, too. So when you have guys who are returning, knowing that, hey, we're only 7 points away from tying in a bowl game against Fresno State, I mean, that bodes well, especially for the confidence. And when you mention that second half of the schedule, which is favorable for the Miners, last year we saw it kind of, fall off the rails. But going into this year with a favorable second half schedule, that's going to be the true test for this team. And if they can withstand that, there's a really, really good chance that not only can they play well in a bowl game, assuming they make it, but, I mean, they'll be riding some confidence to even win that game.
No, I agree with you completely, Sal. And I think the ceiling of this team is back-to-back bowl appearances for the first time since the Mike Price era, which was back in 2004, 2005 when they had 8-win seasons. The floor, though, that's the scary part it's the dark cloud that hangs over this program and cannot go unnoticed, because this floor of this team is a significant regression that leaves a pit of just, in your stomach. Because if you know this team and you realize they have all this returning production, they have a schedule that favors them, and if they can't hold their end of the bargain at that point, then there's some red flags all around at that point. So while the heights can be really exciting to look at for Miner fans, if Miner fans put into perspective what the floor would look like, a 3-win season like that, man, that's a big-time panic button that you're pressing.
No, big time, and no pressure, but, I mean, you have to get the ball rolling on the very first game of the season.
Right.
And the reason I mentioned this is because there's a lot of hype for that North Texas game. A lot of tickets have already been sold. There's very few remaining left. We know El Paso's a late crowd city, so I'm not going to book it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be more surprised if it wasn't about, maybe 1,000 tickets left or a sellout.
I agree.
If that's not the case, then I'll be surprised. But what I'm getting at, though, with North Texas is there's a lot of hype for this game, and the hype is about the Miners. It's not about the visitor. We looked at one of the, I think their last sellout was against the Texas Longhorns.
Correct.
Game was in El Paso. People didn't go to see the UTEP Miners, right? They went to go see the Texas Longhorns. But this time, they're playing North Texas. There's people going out to see North Texas, maybe the family of Hatib Lyles. Shout out to him.
Shout out to Hatib Lyles.
But I mean, that's like maybe 30, 40 people max, if that, and maybe a couple of North Texas alums. But no, man, people are going for UTEP at that game. So UTEP, you finally got what you wanted, a crowd to go see you guys. Now it's up to you to deliver. I mean, I can understand Oklahoma if they don't win that game, but they got to get back into it against New Mexico State. We'll preview the whole schedule down the road, but I mean, that pressure is right from kickoff in the first game of the season.
I agree with you completely, Sal. Let's dive into it. We're going to hit some talking points, and then we're going to wrap things up here, just kind of giving everybody a season outlook for this 2022 season. But before we look ahead, let's look back to 2021. What was your favorite moment from last season, 2021 season, for the Miners when they went 7-6?
You know what? There's a lot. I'll do one of my favorites, but it's not my favorite overall. My favorite would be the Hall of Fame and tackle cancer game against Louisiana Tech. That was the game, I believe, that they solidified bowl eligibility, which was huge, and they did it in a 19-3 game fashion. But if I had to pick my favorite one, Adrian, I'm going to go with the homecoming game against Old Dominion, because at that point, the Miners were, I believe, 3-1. This win here put them at 4-1, where it was kind of like, okay, now we're nearing the middle of October, and there's some real good outlook for this team. And if we're being real, too, this is the game that they won, where when you look at the final of 2021 in full for all of the Miners' opponents, that's the team I think that beat that they only had a winning record, something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
So they got that win, and it was kind of the turning point for hey, this team can be something.
I like that game. The Old Dominion game was probably objectively their best quality win last year. Mm-hmm. I'm sticking with the La Tech one because I really like your initial thoughts. getting to that bowl eligibility, seeing that crowd get so excited about the team, seeing the players just have that sense of emotion, just knowing all that they've been through, whether it was the COVID-19 pandemic shortened season in 2020 or if it was just the adversity that they've dealt with as a whole. It kind of felt like full circle right there. Everything was kind of coming together. And then you had the drop-off, right? Then you had, after that, the Miners proceed to lose 5 of their last 6 games, including the bowl game against Fresno State. But that's a really good one that you bring up right there, Sal. Let's move on to some of our offensive MVPs. Now, this is an interesting one. When we look at the offense as a whole, there's a lot of big names out there. I'll start off with myself. I'm going with quarterback Gavin Hardison. Not necessarily going into the season as the MVP, but the team needing him to be that offensive MVP this year, and I think that's an interesting kind of I don't know. It's a thing to look at right there for the Miners with Gavin Hardison, who last season threw for over 3,000 passing yards, which is really impressive. It was the most quarterback has thrown for since Trevor Vitito in a single season, and he was somebody last year who I just felt like the only thing that Gavin Hardison needs to clean up is the turnover side of things. And once he gets those turnovers cleaned up, does not cough up the ball or does not throw the ball away in terms of throwing any picks, that's where he can take that next step along with his decision making. But I'm going with Gavin Hardison as my offensive MVP. What about you, Sal?
You know what? Right along the lines of that, where Gavin Hardison is a factor, but it's not Gavin Hardison, I'm going to pick Tyron Smith. This is a guy who showed some great flashes last year. He had his 100-yard game against FAU, a game that the Miners almost had. He also had a 49-yard touchdown against Rice, 2 touchdowns against UTSA. So basically, those are games that I think they span in a difference of maybe like 3 or 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So that shows that he can catch fire. But with Garrett being gone, along with Cowan being gone, it's kind of like he has to be the number 1 target for the Miners' offense for the pass game, right? And with the philosophy that Dimmel has on offense, it's kind of like, we're gonna beat you up on the line, we're gonna use our powerful running backs, and we're gonna throw to our best receivers. I know it sounds general, but when you watch the Miners game, that's literally that's right, the plan to a T. So basically, until I see anybody else emerge, really, that's not to say that it won't happen. Tyron Smith has to be the lone target or the lone threat in the passing game right now at the receiver core that I see, and I think he's going to benefit a lot from that.
I think so too. Now, switching it over to the defensive side, I think it's easy to kind of think about and zero in on MVP, so I'm going to kind of cheat here. But I'm taking Praise Meule, the Katy product, the guy who you might look at to be that next NFL product for the Miners. He and Adrian Taylor combined for 12 sacks last year. And, Praise this season, it's about knowing that there's a target on your back in a sense, like, hey, knowing that teams are looking out for you to be that guy who's going to try to stop them. And understand that you have to now come up with that next move. And I think that's what Praise Meule can bring to the table. Now, he's only 4.5 sacks away from the career sack record at UTEP, which is really cool to see a redshirt junior. I mean, he has a chance to do this, and it has a chance to really shatter that record when he's done at UTEP, assuming he comes back next year and plays a senior season. But Praise Meule is going to be my defensive MVP. What about you, Sal?
You know what? I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking Adrian Taylor, Praise Meule off the top. Those are surefires.
Right.
But I'm gonna make a switch.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Tyrese Knight.
Ooh.
Because with obviously we know that he could do it all. If they were to put him on the line, this guy could be a beast. But with shaking and baking things up on the defensive line, that leaves everything up to Tyrese Knight and the linebackers to kind of clean things up. It's kind of like defensive line, you eat the meal, linebackers, you're going to pick up the crumbs in that sense. And they're going to be vacuums on defense if anybody is able to get past them. So with Tyrese Knight, honorable mention, All-Conference USA, second on the team in tackles with 102 and 9 tackles for loss. I mean, I could go on and on about what he's had. He led the game against Fresno State with 15 tackles as well. This is a guy who seeks that contact and closes the deal upon contact. So I got to go with Tyrese Knight. That's my pick.
Before we get into our special teams MVP, I do want to just mention real quick Breon Hayward, that his status is still up in the air in terms of his NCAA eligibility. I'm sure we'll find out, ahead of kickoff for game day, but that's one of those that's still, in the air as far as what's going to happen right there. So I think that as kind of a substitute, instead of picking a Breon Hayward at that position, Tyrese Knight, he put on almost identical numbers. You mentioned second leading tackler. I think he was just, a handful away from being the leading tackler right behind Breon Hayward. But now going to the special team side of things, Sal, who would you say is your MVP on special teams?
You know what? Easily off top. This is not my pick, but of course, Gavin Beckley's a good choice.
Baller.
But I'm going to go with Josh Sloan.
Nice.
And the reason why is because going into this season, we know the star point of this Miner team. If you were to pick one aspect of this team, whether it be offense, defense, or special teams, majority of the people are going to say defense.
Of course.
But to set up that defense, if the offense is not able to get a first down and they have to punt it away, Josh Sloan is getting better every year, and he's going to be setting up the defense for a lot more success than he did last year, which he did a good job of already. And also to Adrian, to this point, I can't remember where I saw it. It was on Twitter, some media club, but they had mentioned that they were giving their top kicker punter duos, their top 50.
Okay.
And I might be wrong, but I think it was like around 18 or 19. In all of Division I college football, Beckley and Sloan were one of the top duos, and I think they were at like 18 or 19.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I mean, Josh Sloan already preseason all-conference. It's a great pick right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to just side with Beckley on the sense of, like, he's my preseason pick. I mean, he's my special teams MVP going into this year because – when I see Gavin Beckley, I know, number one, he's never going to miss a PAT. He's going to make all your extra points right there. So it's money. He's so consistent with that aspect of the game, and that can't be taken for granted. And at the same time, I think he's money when it comes inside of 40, like 40 yards. He's money. He will make those field goals. He had an 18 for 24 season, had a long of 50, and he has a chance this season to take that next step. I'm really bullish on Gavin Beckley, and I think he's going to be a real fun guy to watch. Now, I want to switch gears and talk about your most anticipated game of this season. Now, you've got a lot of different ones, especially non-conference or in conference play. But Sal, when you look at the 2022 season, which is the game that you're most hyped for?
The one I'm most hyped for is going to be Charlotte on October 1st.
Why?
Will they get their first win in the Eastern time zone?
Oh, my gosh. You had to go there.
I had to right off the bat. And the reason I say this to Adrian is because we know that first half of the season is the toughest. They got Oklahoma. I mean, North Texas could be a tough game, too. They dropped it last year against them in the final minutes.
And the year before, and the year before, and the year before.
But finally, North Texas isn't scared to come to El Paso. That's a whole other story. But Oklahoma's going to be a tough one. New Mexico, it's on the road, and it was a tough game last year too. Boise State at home. Boise State's one of the top, I don't know what the equivalent to a mid-major in football is, but they're a group of 5 power, I guess, if we want to say that.
I think so.
But
definitely.
Basically, they have 2 games where majority of the people can chalk them up as losses. North Texas could be a toss-up. I think New Mexico State and New Mexico is probably better set for wins. But you have Charlotte on October 1st, your first game of October, your chance to win a game in the Eastern time zone, which you haven't done, and also a game that's after Boise State. Who knows who's going to be available for this game? This is a chance to break a severely terrible curse. Can they do it against Charlotte?
and finally win in the Eastern time zone. Now, one of the biggest things about all of this, Sal, is I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the schedule. I'm going to go with North Texas just because it's the first game of the season. Set the tone right, and then you know what I have to say, it can't be overblown in a positive way, right? Because if UTEP wins that game, what can you really take from that game going into Oklahoma? That's where I have a lot of questions. So, like, if I wanted to make the argument for North Texas, it sets the tone for the season. If I wanted to make the argument against that game being the most highly anticipated game of the season, I might go with a game like, on the road at La Tech. It's a team that's trying to be up and coming, a team that you beat last year with the Miners, and maybe at that point of the season, it's kind of that win that you're going to need in order to become bowl eligible for a second straight season. So if that's the case, I kind of look at that one as being a big game to look at. Sal, as we wrap things up, as we kind of look ahead to this season, I need your prediction. Give me your final prediction for this season for the Miners, and give me the record.
All right. I'll just do game by game, quick win or loss. North Texas win.
Here, I'll set it up for you, okay?
Okay.
North Texas.
Win.
Oklahoma.
Loss.
New Mexico State.
Win.
At New Mexico.
Win.
Versus Boise State.
Loss.
Okay. At Charlotte.
Win.
Okay,
so it's too late. No,
man. So now you have them right now at 4-2.
Yeah.
At La Tech.
I'm gonna put that one as a loss.
Okay. Florida Atlantic.
Win.
Middle Tennessee.
Win.
Rice. At Rice. Thursday.
Loss. I don't know why.
Wow. Okay. At UTSA.
Loss.
I skipped a game. Versus Florida International.
Florida International. I'm gonna say a win. It's senior day.
Okay. And then you're calling the UTSA game a loss.
UTSA loss because it's senior day.
So you have this team finishing 7-5, going to a bowl game, Sal.
Yeah. And, well, I didn't give the final season record. I'm going to say 8-5.
Wow.
They finally get a bowl win. Wow. Damn, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but it tastes so good.
Oh, man. I haven't made my final prediction. I'll do it next with Steve Kaplowitz. I'm dreading this conversation because I'm not – I feel like I'm good going out on a limb on different subjects, but last year I picked him to go 6-6. I always try to go a little conservative just because of all this stuff. Still don't know where I'm leaning, but you got him 8-5, Sal. You got him 8-5.
Yeah, this is a team that has a very, very favorable schedule, to close things out. Obviously, it's up to this team to win those games, of course.
Right.
But just going off of the trends, the recent trends, not history, but they've gotten consistently better. Their defense is good enough to win them games alone.
Sure.
We saw that last year for like 4 or 5 of their wins. Their defense is the reason that they won the game. But the reason I feel confident in this team is because Hardison has another year under his belt, and he should have a solid year. I mean, he's been a starter for so long. There's nothing less than a really, really good / great year that should be expected from Gavin Hardison. I think that's fair to say.
Very fair.
But the defense can put this team in position to win. We talked about their special teams with Gavin Beckley and Sloan, but Beckley in particular, imagine you feel more confident as the minutes are winding down and it's a tie game, or the Miners have a chance to tie it with the field goal or take the lead with the field goal. You have a lot of confidence that the defense can get a stop. We saw that. You have a lot of confidence that Beckley can make those field goals. And let's say the defense has to win them the game because, the offense doesn't put up points to put the game away. You feel confident in Sloan punting the ball, putting them in the opposition in terrible field position for them, and then the defense closing the deal with a good play. So I think that bodes well. And if guys can step up on offense, the sky could be the limit for this team. But yeah, 8-5 with a 7-5 regular season.
Oh man, Sal! Now I've got to do the dreadful task of making my final picks. But Sal, thanks so much for doing this. Thanks for always being available. We're doing this literally as you're doing a Chihuahuas broadcast. Yeah. We're hearing vacuuming in the background because we're doing this after hours in our 600 ESPN El Paso Lubingo studios. So I appreciate everybody listening. And hey, Sal, we'll talk to you Saturday.
You got it. I'm excited. August 27th. You know where to be. Be there or listen on 600.
All right, in our final segment here on the MinerTalk season opening podcast, I'm joined by my tag team partner on Sports Talk, Steve Kaplowitz. Steve, this season there's a lot of optimism involving this UTEP football team. We've talked about this countless of times for here on Sports Talk, but the season outlook, it's pretty simple. The expectations are there on this UTEP football team, and it's up to them to deliver.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, they know how good they were in the first half of the season. They also know that that despite being in most of those games, they did not deliver the second half of the season. So if they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder starting off 2022, they should. And hopefully they'll be able to start strong and finish strong and just continue to progress on what so far has been pretty optimistic time with Dana Dimmel.
Who are some of the players you're most, you're looking forward to most from the Miners this upcoming year?
Look, I mean, there's all the usual suspects, right? I think Praise Amehule is going to have a monster season. I am very excited about the combination of Ronald Awatt and Deion Hankins in the backfield. I'm very interested to see who emerges as the wide receiver of choice. Does Tyron Smith kind of take into that lead role? They're so deep now. Are there guys that we don't even know about who are going to emerge? And clearly, to me, the guy on the man of the hour, the man of the year is Gavin Hardison. He's wearing the Laufenberg name and number on the back of his jersey this year after Justin Garrett. He has to take that next step. If UTEP is going to have an opportunity to really get to the top of this conference, Gavin Hardison needs to become one of, if not the best quarterback in this conference. And I think he has the chops to do it. I know he's got the skill set. The question is, will Gavin be able to put it all together this year and allow that UTEP offense to become one of the most prolific offenses in the conference?
Before we get into our game-by-game predictions for this UTEP schedule, which I'm dreading, by the way. I hate doing this, but I love doing this because we always get to reflect back on this. We'll post an article about this as well on 600ESPNElPaso.com for people to check it out and to hold us to this. But before I get to this, the season total, the odds for the total wins for this season for UTEP football is 5.5 wins. I'm in the kind of boat where I feel like UTEP can eclipse that 5.5 mark pretty easily. If they don't, though, Steve, if they go back to the bottom of that, that's a real bad loss for this UTEP football team.
Huge step back. Because right now there is more optimism and momentum that this team is suddenly facing since Price. Because you got to realize something, okay? Even when Sean Kugler won 7 games and went to a bowl, nobody was buying that team the following season thinking that they were legit like they are this team. And the crazy thing is, that following season, they had more injuries than they've ever dealt with, and they were a missed field goal away from going 6-6 and going back to a bowl game. People forget about that team missed a field goal against Louisiana Tech, that if they beat the Bulldogs that year, they are 6-6. They're going back-to-back bowl games. Maybe they win, and who knows how the future is rewritten for Kugler and company. But that's not the case, and for now, all of a sudden, hey, we're pretty excited about this team, and fans are excited. They realize UTEP has a chance to do something that they haven't done in more than 15 years. That's go to a back-to-back bowl games, and this time win their first bowl since 1967.
I think when you look at this UTEP football program and just how it's been historically kind of inconsistent, right? I mean, this would be the first year back-to-back bowl appearances since 2004, 2005. You have to come up with a set of rules for picking UTEP football games. So I'm going to read you some rules that I just came up with. You tell me what you think, okay?
Go ahead.
Number 1, any Power 5 game is a loss for UTEP.
No, I don't think that's necessarily the case because it depends on how weak those Power 5 schools are. The problem is this year the Power 5 school is Oklahoma. So more than likely the streak continues. But if you were ever clever enough to play a bottom feeder in a Power 5, then suddenly you have a chance. The problem is UTEP hasn't been that fortunate in a while to be going up against those Power 5 bottom feeders.
Maybe next year against Arizona is that year they get that Power 5 win if Arizona doesn't take a step up in their program. But I'll go to my second one. NMSU is never a guaranteed win.
That's 100% correct. 100% correct. When it's a rivalry game, you throw the records out the window. You throw everything out the window. And now that Jerry Kill is on board, and we know what he's done in the past with all those teams he's taken over, who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully not this year for UTEP fans, but in the future, that could become as good a rivalry game as it's been in a long time.
Okay, my third rule, always count on at least one UTEP blunder game. A game that they totally botch, which they're supposed to win.
That's usually a stone-cold lock. It really is. You hope that as the program grows and gets better and better, that statement gets thrown out the window. But for now, I'm 100% with you on that. And yeah, you do feel like as long as UTEP football is relevant, something will happen this season and every season that'll make you crazy.
Number 4, injuries and players being out for whatever reason is actually a big deal for UTEP.
Huge. They don't have the depth to recover in some spots. They really don't. Now, certain positions, they can afford injuries. They can afford other things to happen. But you look at this Miner team, although from a depth perspective, it's better than it's been in a long time, it's still UTEP. And take, for example, Gavin Hardison. If something happens there and you're relying on a guy like Calvin Brownholtz, who, despite being a senior, is unproven for the most part, hasn't played a ton, that would just be, throw a huge wrench into the UTEP season.
And my last rule, never count out the Miners when they're set as a high underdog, especially in Conference USA games. Like, I'll give you an example. Last year, they were 4-4 when they were underdogs, whether it was against the spread or just money line. They were 4-4, so they're kind of 500. What do you think about that one right there?
I like that. I always think, now it's funny, I remember when Gary Nord said that UTEP stands for You Take 'em Points. And everybody got a good laugh, just like you did there. But no, they have been good with the spread. They've been good last season against the spread. And you're right. If they're ever a huge underdog, like take, for example, Oklahoma, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment, could very well be UTEP's opportunity to shine.
Okay, let's go game by game for this 2022 football schedule. We'll pick wins and losses, and then at the end, we'll kind of talk about our records on both ends. I already did mine. I know you've got yours on your end, so let's just get to it. Saturday, August 27th, Week 0 game at home against North Texas at the Sun Bowl. What do you think?
Do we need scores or just wins and losses?
Just wins, losses.
I think UTEP wins the game. I think it'll be a very entertaining game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a close football game. I think it could go down to the fourth quarter. But ultimately, for UTEP, this is, I don't want to say it's their season, but so much is on the line for this first game. If they win in front of a packed house, sold-out crowd, it absolutely sets them up to draw for the rest of the season. If they lay a giant egg on the 27th, then guess what? Good luck getting fans back. Unless you're going to go upset Oklahoma the next week, you're not going to be able to get them back in as easily as you want. So this is a huge game. I think UTEP comes ready to play. I think they realize what's on the line. They have not beaten North Texas since Aaron Jones was in the backfield here at the Sun Bowl. Final game of the season that year. I think things change this time around and the Miners win.
They have way more to lose than they actually do to gain in this one, and they have to win. It's such an interesting thing where it's a must-win situation in the first week of the season for the Miners, but I'm with you on that. I still think the Miners win. I'm going to side with this team because they've shown that they have a lot of starters coming back from last year, and I'm going to side with the team that has experience, which is the UTEP Miners. Let's go over to September 3rd. That's the away game out in Norman, Oklahoma. Do we need to pick this game? Are you picking the unthinkable? Oklahoma versus UTEP, 1:30 kickoff Saturday, September 3rd.
Look, Oklahoma is predicted to win the Big 12, all right? I'm not going to go say UTEP's going to go and beat this team. You can be a fan all you want, but let's be realistic. Let's be respectful here, okay? Oklahoma has a team that's going to have a new head coach. I get that, but you're dealing with somebody at Brent Venables who knows the program, somebody who's very familiar to Norman. I am interested in, number one, Dylan Gabriel. Okay, he was so prolific at Central Florida. Now he comes over and is jumping into the Big 12. What will that be like? Will there be some growing pains? Will he be able to just take it and run? Look, this is a team that has plenty of talent. I like Theo Weiss. He is a receiver. Marvin Mims. They got tons of receivers, tons of talent, and they will be pretty good on the defensive side. Will it take a while? Maybe it takes a little while. Could be a perfect time for UTEP to go in there if the Miners can just keep this respectable and leave with healthy players and at least a competitive football game. I think that would go so far to turn everybody in this town into believers.
That's a win in my book. I'll be honest with you, Steve, but I still take a loss against Oklahoma, so I have the Miners going into their September 10th rivalry game against New Mexico State at 1-1. That's Jerry Kill, his new program with the Aggies. He's trying to establish that the culture, trying to lay the foundations for this football program at New Mexico Mexico State. How do you see this one going?
I think UTEP wins, and I think UTEP wins this handily by a couple touchdowns. Look, I like Jerry Kill. I think Jerry Kill's going to do terrific stuff when they become conference rivals here starting next season. And I think that by next year and the year after, New Mexico State's going to be a very legitimate team to be reckoned with in Conference USA. But if you look at historically his turnaround jobs, year one is never a good year. I mean, he is taking over a team at rock bottom, a program at rock bottom. He's got to build it back up again. You don't just fix it overnight. You need some time. So the Aggies could do some things in that game. They could score some points and maybe put a little bit of a scare into UTEP. But I think when it's all said and done, Miners come out and they win this one, and they're 2-1.
I don't think this one will be a blowout, but I do think the Miners will win. I think they will definitely handle the Aggies in the Battle of I-10. First time it's in El Paso. Feels like a long time. So the Miners get a much-needed win in the Battle of I-10 at home. They improve to 2-1. Now they go on the road to New Mexico that following week. Now this is an interesting one because head coach Danny Gonzalez has kind of had a up and down tenure so far as the Lobos head coach. You know, he is somebody who comes from the Herm Edwards coaching tree out there from Arizona State, and New Mexico ended up, he's 5-14 as a head coach overall. So to say the pressure is high for Danny Gonzalez is probably an understatement. How do you see this one going?
Look, last season, this was the worst offense in college football. Ugh. Think about that. Worst offense in FBS. And you know what? I don't think they're going to have a 180. So if you take that offense against UTEP's defense, this could be the Miners salivating at an opportunity to not just score points against Gonzalez's Lobos, but be able to generate some turnovers and maybe score on defense as well. So I know it's a road game. I know it's New Mexico. I know it's a team that has traditionally given UTEP some trouble up there in Albuquerque, which has always been the case. But if the Miners come out of New Mexico State playing well with confidence, I think they go into Albuquerque and come out on top.
I've got them winning as well. We've got the same approach so far. Let's see if we continue to have the same approach going into the following week, September 23rd. No breaks for the Miners in the entire month of September, and they take on Boise State at home at the Sun Bowl. I was a young fan when I got a chance to watch the Miners host Boise State. I think it was way back in 2006, and in that game, it was just a back-and-forth effort by both teams. I believe the officials had a lot of questionable calls in that game in which the Miners ended up losing. But what you see from Andy Avalos, who is now their second-year head coach over there at Boise State, they were 7-5 last year. I like some of the pieces that they bring back to the team. Bachmeier is back as well at the quarterback position, and he lit up the Miners last year at home. But now it's in the Sun Bowl. How do you see this one faring?
So again, I think this comes down to the UTEP defense more than the offense. I remember in the game against Boise, the offense was going toe-to-toe early, and then you had the special teams touchdown that the Miners gave up, and the wheels came off after that. And it's just like they never could recover. So I think this time around, Boise State just destroyed the UTEP defense last game. They picked them apart, long touchdown passes. It was bad. So the question's going to be, by game number 5, right?
Right.
How will UTEP's pass defense be at this point? Will the corners grow up a little bit? Because there could be some newcomers in the defensive backfield having an opportunity to shine. If they play well against New Mexico and New Mexico State, and they are 3-1 going into this game, they're going to be riding a ridiculous amount of momentum, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Sun Bowl is nearly sold out for this game too. A lot goes into it. A lot of these Miners that were on the team, they were there last year. They knew what it was like to get their tails kicked. They want revenge. I think this is the statement game of the season for UTEP. Not going to be easy. Boise State picked first in the Mountain West. They'll clearly be the favorites, but I could see UTEP going down the wire with Boise State, and if the ball breaks in the right way, end up winning this football game.
Wow, that's a big one right there. So you've got the statement victory against Boise State for the Miners. I'm going to go the opposite direction and say Miners lose by 2 touchdowns. It's a good game at the beginning, but the Miners, I just don't think they have enough to compete still with the Boise State Broncos. It's a Friday night game, which is pretty interesting as well. Next Saturday, the first game of the first first game officially of Conference USA season, although they play that North Texas game to kick off the year. Charlotte on the road in Charlotte, North Carolina, Saturday, October 1st. Now, here's the stat that everybody wants to hear. UTEP football is 0-25-1 all-time in Eastern Time Zone games. They have never won a game in the Eastern Time Zone. Steve, is this the time where they finally turn it around and win that first game in the Eastern Time Zone?
Here's the thing, okay, and this is interesting because you look at them last year, right? They were, I guess they were 4-2 early on, and then they went to 5-4, but they lost their last 3. So they're much better at home than they are on the road. And getting Chris Reynolds at quarterback is going to be a big thing for them because he is right now, a second-team all-preseason Conference USA player, according to Phil Steele. They also have Grant Dubose, one of the best receivers in the league. So you got a good quarterback, you got a good receiver. It's going to be a lot like Boise State, another test because their offense has playmakers, but they also have a defense that right now should play into the UTEP offense. Listen, no road game is ever easy for UTEP. We've seen that, especially on the East Coast. However, Charlotte is not projected to be one of the top teams in Conference USA. They're more of the bottom feeders this year. So if UTEP does what they should do and what they've done all along this season, yeah, this team is going to come out and suddenly they're going to be 5-1, and Miner fans are going to be looking around going, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah, I'm not really too much of a fan of Will Healy and his staff and his team really at Charlotte, but I'm flipping this one. I like quarterback Chris Reynolds. I think he's a sharp gunslinger, and I think he has the ability to just throw all across the field. If the Miners struggle out of the gate when it comes to their pass defense, I think Charlotte's a team who can expose that. They also have Conference USA Freshman of the Year from last season, Elijah Spencer, back this season with the 49ers. I'm taking Charlotte in this one, Steve.
Well, I mean, why not? They've never UTEP's never won a road game on the East Coast, so that's a safe bet. But again, not so much worried about the UTEP pass defense getting picked apart. I'm more interested in can the front four get pressure, and can they make everybody's opposing offensive line miserable? And if they can, and Praise and Keenan Stewart and Jadrian Taylor and these guys start wreaking havoc all on opposing offensive lines, then the defensive backs aren't going to have to worry too much because quarterbacks aren't going to have enough time to throw the football. And that's going to be a big, big key for that UTEP defense.
Yeah, this could be the year where they finally snap that streak. So it's there. It's right there for the taking for the Miners. Shifting it over October 8th, another road game, back-to-back road games for the Miners in Conference USA. It's Louisiana Tech. They head off to Ruston, and they take on Sonny Cumbie's new team with the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. He is coming there after helping out the Texas Tech Red Raiders in an air raid offense as their offensive coordinator from last season. Sonny Cumbie and the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, how do you see this game faring?
Man, the problem here is Louisiana Tech's rebuilding. They're another team that's on their way back up, but it could take a while. So for UTEP, they're kind of lucky. I mean, you get Charlotte and La Tech on the road back-to-back weeks. I feel like that's a pretty good sign. It really signals things are going well. Look, you said it earlier. There's always a game, right, where you think UTEP's going to win, and then things slip away. I'll go here with Louisiana Tech. It could be a toss-up. I could easily say beat Charlotte, lose to Louisiana Tech. I don't think UTEP goes 2-0 on this road trip. I think they're going to fall someplace. So, again, it'll be a tough loss for Miner fans because things are so promising at this point. But unless they're just clicking on all cylinders and nobody's going to stand in their way, this would be that game where something happens and UTEP ends up going down.
I took your same philosophy as far as UTEP splitting these road trip games, and I have them winning in this one, but they could easily win against Charlotte and drop this one. So I completely understand what you're saying there. Moving forward, they get the bye week, the October 15th weekend. Then they go at home against Florida Atlantic. The Miners are 5-1 when they come off a bye under the Dana Dimmel era. Florida Atlantic come into the Sun Bowl at for a 2:00 kickoff. Do you think the Miners win this one?
So here's the thing, okay? FAU has all their offensive weapons. This is going to be another challenge for the UTEP defense. They're all back, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, but FAU is like gutted in their own defense. So this could be a high-scoring affair. This could be one of those games where the finals in the 30s because both teams are really racking points up on each other. UTEP is at a spot now where they need to really kind of click again and get this thing and get this thing going where it needs to be. That being said, again, sometimes if you're a UTEP fan, things happen that aren't supposed to happen. So I think the Miners are going to stay close with Florida Atlantic. It's going to have a chance to be a really tight game. But when it's all said and done, this could end up being the first time the Miners take a loss at the Sun Bowl this year. So I'll go Florida Atlantic in an upset. Miners have a couple of losses in a row and have to try to figure things out.
Look, I really like quarterback Nkosi Perry. He's a really nice throwing quarterback who can also run the football as well. So he brings that dual threat ability. And then they've got their dynamic running back in Johnny Ford. So they have some nice pieces. I'm still taking the Miners simply because the home field advantage coming off the bye week as well. But flipping it over, it's that Halloween weekend. They host Middle Tennessee. That's a 7 o'clock kickoff on October 29th, a Saturday game that will be streamed on ESPN Plus along with most of these Conference USA games with the exception of Rice on the road and then their away game against UTSA to close out the year. But how do you see this one against
This is where they rebound. This is where UTEP rebounds, okay? They're not going to lose 3 in a row. They're not going to let their season get away from them, especially with Rice and FIU coming up next on the schedule. Miners are going to battle back. It's going to be a tough, hard-fought game. Once again, you know what? You look at Middle Tennessee. They've got a rebuilt offensive line. That gives UTEP's defense licking their chops. And, you know, even though Chase Cunningham is back, it might not matter. So I'll give UTEP the opportunity to come back in a big way, beat Middle Tennessee, and get this thing rolling again.
Yeah, Middle Tennessee's really good. I mean, UTEP didn't play them last year. They came off a 7-6 season going into this year. They're a really good team, but I still have the Miners beating them. I think the Miners have a really good, a really good chance whenever they play anybody at home, and that goes without saying. But that should be a really interesting game to kind of watch. November 3rd. That's the first November game of the season for the Miners. It's a Thursday night game against Rice on the road, and this one will be televised on CBS Sports Network, like I just mentioned. Now, it's interesting because against Rice, it feels like Dana Dimmel always has Mike Bloomgren's number, but with Rice, this is that they're kind of make it or break it year. If they fail, you could definitely see a change in regime at the coaching staff over there in Rice.
Look, Rice did something weird last year. They knocked off Marshall and UAB in the same season. That's a shock, but they also only won 4 games last year, so it's not exactly like we're ready to declare Rice the champions of Conference USA. I don't think Rice goes ahead and makes a huge step up this year. I think the Miners come back. They beat Rice on the road in Houston. They realize what's at stake, and again, they're trying to close this season strong and have a shot at winning a conference title.
I still have Rice in this one, Steve. This is my blunder game for the Miners. Unfortunately, Miners come in a little overconfident, think they can walk all over the Owls, and they fall in this Thursday night game. Shifting it over, the last home game of the year, it's FIU at home November 19th, a 2 o'clock kickoff for this one. How do you see the Miners faring against the Panthers?
No, I think the Miners, they realize this could be one of their layups. This is the game they've got to have, and I think they have it. I think it's a pretty convincing win for UTEP, too. They realize what's on the line. They don't overlook UTSA the following week. Instead, they realize, let's go in, take care of business against the Panthers, and get ready for the big one against UTSA.
Yeah, Mike McIntyre is going to be a good first-year head coach for FIU, but they're not ready to go on the road and travel from the East Coast to El Paso to beat the Miners. So I take the Miners in this one as well. Final game of the year, away game out in San Antonio, UTSA, November 26th. Oh, man, this one could be a real interesting game, especially if the Miners, hopefully for the Miners' sake, they're not in a position where they have to go and then win the last game of the year to try to maintain bowl eligibility. But nonetheless, UTSA last season was went to the Conference USA state championship. They bring back, their quarterback in Frank Harris. How do you see this one, Farron?
Listen, I think that, UTSA is still picked to win the league by many, to be one of the top teams in Conference USA. Now, who knows what things are going to look like by November 26th. Maybe UTSA is not as good as we all projected. Maybe the Miners are great. We just don't know. But if you look at the way this game goes on paper, the way UTSA has played UTEP in recent years, the fact that it's a road game, as amped up as the Miners are going to be, Frank Harris is considered right now the best quarterback in Conference USA. How great would it be if Hardison and Harris are the two best quarterbacks in the league, and ultimately this game comes down to bragging rights to see who gets the best of each other for a game that could ultimately decide Conference USA. Yeah. I would love that.
Imagine if this one has a lot of meaning behind it. That'd be huge. But this is a tough one to pick. This one, I really had to wrestle with my thoughts on, as far as who's taking this one.
Look, you look across the board, UTSA, outside of special teams and running back, because they lost McCormick, has about as talented a group as you're going to find. They had a good recruiting class, and they also have Jeff Traylor as head coach. I'm going to give UTSA the win here. I think it could be close for the Miners, but I don't think that the season ends on a high note heading into postseason.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, Steve. I think that the last time that the Miners beat UTSA in San Antonio was that crazy overtime win, that triple overtime win that they had, and I think it would take something like that in order to beat UTSA on November 26th. So I've got the Miners at 7-5, Steve. I know that it's a little bit lower than what I initially thought, but I do have them winning their bowl game. So maybe let's see how they finish up there.
I think I went 8-4, but I picked the most weird losses. Like, you would normally think Boise State. I went with instead Charlotte and Louisiana Tech. But I could easily see UTEP going back to a bowl, winning a bowl like you. And listen, 7 wins, 8 wins. If they go 7 or 8 wins and win a bowl game, that would absolutely get this entire community fan base pumped up for the future.
Yeah, I felt like going into this year, it's all about winning that bowl game, snapping that streak for the first time since 1967. So I'm totally with you on that. Hey, Steve, thanks so much for doing this. Can't wait to bring you on here on Miner Talk throughout the season whenever we do these kinds of podcasts or whenever we do actual Miner Talk in general.
Don't hold me to these picks, because I'm willing to bet that on game week I'm probably going to change my mind after what I just said now. But this was a lot of fun, and looking forward to the season.
Oh, trust me, I change my picks all the time, so I'm with you on that.
Good, Adrian.
And that's just going to wrap us up here on the Miner Talk podcast. Boy, thanks for listening. If you hung around throughout the whole podcast, thanks so much for listening to this whole thing. My special thanks to Voice of the Miners, Jon Teicher, his new tag team partner, Cole Freytag, former UTEP Miner as well, who graduated back in 2016. My special thanks to quarterback Gavin Hardison, who chatted with me during a practice and got a chance to pick his brain and get a good understanding of what's going on behind the scenes for UTEP football. Big shout out to Oscar Arrieta Agency and Oscar Arrieta himself for joining us on the podcast. They're celebrating 25 years here in El Paso, and it was great to talk with him and also just talk about what it is to be a business owner here in this city, which was real cool to get under the hood and really understand what it fully means. So big shout out to the Oscar Arrieta Agency, and then big shout out also goes to our two guys here in the 600 ESPN El Paso Lubingo Studios, Sal Montes, my tag team partner and co-host for Miner Talk, and also Steve Kaplowitz, who I joined on Sports Talk every single day, Monday through Friday. We are so excited. It is another season of Miner Talk here on 600 ESPN El Paso. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and refer this podcast to a friend if you love this one, talking UTEP football. I know it was a long one. I know we did have some audio difficulties at some points, but thank you so much for listening in, and can't wait for this season. I'm really excited about it. Me personally, I have a lot of optimism myself, and let's see what the Miners can do. Till next time, till August 27th, as you're listening to 600 ESPN El Paso.